So I first saw the Allman Brothers November 13th, 1993 at the South Florida Fairgrounds in West Palm Beach, Florida. I just did not expect what I got when I went. I was expecting a bunch of old people playing the hits. I was just looking at the set list. Of the 20 songs they played, 11 of them were from like the 90s era. Several of them, All Night Train, Back Where It All Begins, Changed My Way of Living, hadn't been released yet. I was so fucking blown away. I went to the media play. I think it was a media play on East Colonial in Orlando and bought Wipe the Window, Check the Oil, Dollar Gas. I'd been flipping through like the bin, and this was there with like Brothers of the Road and the Arista record, and being like, this is crap. It doesn't have Duane. And once I saw him, I was like, holy fucking shit. So, Long Live the Allman Brothers Band was really, for me, invented that day and you know, as a concept. So here's a little more on that fun shit. Long Live the Allman Brothers Band.
He was the absolute master of that stage that night. Two things really stand out to me as I think back on it, beyond the obvious, which we'll get to in just a second. First was how happy Dickie seemed. I didn't realize it at the time, but he had just done a short stint in rehab or detox and had just rejoined the band. And that was pretty cool. The other thing is the debut of the song Back Where It All Begins, a song that really encapsulates Dickie Betts' spirit very well to me. And it's always stuck with me. One of the first of the like new songs that I really gravitated to, always enjoyed hearing it in concert. And then I guess the final was they actually did play Mountain Jam, and I didn't expect it. I didn't know not to expect it. It's a better way to say it. But they did bust out a version of Mountain Jam that for the first time in many, many, many years, not just the truncated version that ended up in Jessica. About a year and a half ago, I sat down and talked with a podcast at my alma mater, University of Central Florida. Sebastian Garcia asked me about some memorable moments, and I recounted this story and a little better than I've done it today. Really thinking about Dickie a lot and his legacy and his impact on my life, on my scholarship, on my music listening, on my guitar playing.
Expecting, because it's at the fairgrounds, that I'm going to see a nostalgia act. I'm expecting to go in there and see a bunch of old people playing the hits with a couple new members. And I left a lifelong fan. I was so blown away, Sebastian. It would be the same if you were to like go see like Tedeschi Trucks Band today, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, you know, like they're still doing this. Like
right.
It didn't stop." I was so blown away. Like I immediately drove to the record store the next day and bought a compilation album of live cuts from another era, just because I was like, they have to be great. And you know, it was like, if they're this good now, you know, and I just kept seeing them there. So that's probably, you know, one of my favorite ones of them, was seeing them live for the first time and experiencing it and realizing, oh, this isn't over.
Right.
And not even realizing it at the time. You know, at the point I hadn't even thought about, dreamt up doing a book. And I really can't separate like playing music or as a young person and pursuing it and like the fandom and where this resulted and those things. But the through line was kind of continuing to pursue that music and finding different ways that people did it, ways that excited me about the music, how it was presented. For this particular band, and the music was like this renewed sound of that music. You know, it's Muddy Waters and it's Elmore James and it's B.B. King. The fundamental reason I chose to write on it is I'm a nerd.
So my book, Play All Night, Duane Allman and the Journey to Fillmore East, was the product of my PhD dissertation. Basically the culmination of 30 years of my obsession with the Allman Brothers Band, with Duane Allman.
For those of us who are Allman Brother fans, and Duane Allman remains that standard. And I'll say that for those of us who, it all goes back to this like one person. Well, that was also Duane's guitar playing, his band leadership, his spirit comes through to me in the music. You know, so it was an obvious choice for me to sort of, all right, what is it about him? I deconstructed the entirety of the history in my own mind. Really, by deconstructing this album is how I was able to kind of piece together how the story worked out. And I think one of the best things was, and I was attracted to this from the beginning, was this sense of ensemble playing, which you mentioned. The intention was always going into this, and I did it in my mid-40s, I got my PhD, was to do a book on Duane Allman, the Allman Brothers. In that whole process, Matt, the things that hadn't been said before that I wanted to talk about was really about the music and how the music impacted people, fans, normal people, everyday people who were writing for college newspapers. For the most part, that's where I got a ton of material. So the idea was saying, what does Duane Allman want to do in music? What does he value most in music? And how do we know if he and what did his bandmates value? And how do we know if he was successful with that? And at Fillmore East is the melding of those two strains.